Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back. It's Tim Harris with the guys, and this is, of course, Full Throttle Talk. We have got an absolutely intense show for all of you today. We are going to be talking, frankly, a lot about Luft. We have 8 different topics that we're going to focus on. Luft is topic 3, and I have a feeling we will not get to any topics beyond topic 3. But with that said, if we get past the Luft conversation, we're going to be talking about different kinds of wheels. Cast wheels, forged wheels, carbon fiber wheels, magnesium wheels. And I have to say, in doing the research for that topic, I learned a lot, especially about magnesium wheels, which I didn't know. We're going to have hopefully an interesting conversation about really what makes something essentially real and authentic versus a tribute or, maybe even fake. We'll probably not talk about the 780 or the new, the Spider Boxster EV replacement thing. We have a great this or that where we're going to be showing you 2 different cars, and we're going to decide, and you're going to help us decide which one you choose, one or the other. And then we also have a few really good listener questions. So without any further delay, let's start out with our usual question. Mr. Van Epps, what did you do in cars this week?
I'm recovering still, Tim, from this week in cars. It was one hell of a week. And starting with the event that I attended just prior to Luft, which was Target Carolina, I believe the 10th edition of Target Carolina. So 1 year younger than Luft. But the image I have behind me, this was the largest. It's held at Little Switzerland, North Carolina. That's where it's been for the last few years. And I'll cover this camera up so you guys can see. This is kind of part of the group that was there to listen to the fearless leader, Mr. Charles Stanley, there standing up on the wall, giving us our driver's meeting before the day was to begin. So this is really a 2-day driving event that starts in Little Switzerland and then drives out probably, 200 miles, 200, 300 miles a day that we go out to a lunch destination someplace and then back to Little Switzerland for the evening. And it was fantastic. It really was. Let me see if I can pull up here. Let's do this. There we go. So
you're driving Paul crazy talking about a rally, right? He's sweating.
precisely, but
I'm going
but
Friday.
I think we
Okay.
know he's been cleared now to go to his next one, even though he's
Yep.
driving some mommy wagon or something. I'm not sure, but this was the kind of the lineup. About 110 cars or so that were there at the start in 4 different groups. So we ripped out, and that particular morning it had rained the night before, so we had to go a little slow on the first morning just as the roads dried out.
Did everybody make it?
Um,
Did any of those cars decide to take a hiatus during the sojourn?
oh, well, listen, there were several mechanical issues, of course, and this year in particular, like my group, I led a group out when I called in last week from the start of that group, led that group out, and I think by the time at the front end of the event, I started with 10 cars. By the end of the event on day 2, we were down to 3. And I'm not sure if that's some function of my driving or that we just had we just had a good, I mean, seriously, we had a good time, but people move off into different groups and so on, and some people don't want to go as fast. And it's just one of those things. We had a terrific time. I know I certainly enjoyed it. Uh, and there we go. I'm coming back into focus here slightly. Really, really nice group of people. And we kind of renew every year. And that's kind of the nice thing. Everybody gets together for this and a couple of other events that we have on an annual basis. And then we're driving these mountains. You get to know these roads. Um, a few people had some little minor skirmishes, myself included, but we won't dial into that too deeply. Nothing
Wait,
that you don't expect.
Wait,
I want to
there's a
I want to
story.
dial in.
What'd you wreck?
I know.
What happened to Black
Who-
Betty?
what traffic violation did you get?
I
What
got
what
no traffic
livestock did you
violation.
hit?
I got the front end of my car a little kissed as we were transitioning from some asphalt roads to a gravel road, which came up on me a little unexpectedly, and the car got a little, uh, you know, the front got kissed a little bit as it
You
slightly went off, but that's
translated,
okay. I was able to drive.
You ran out of talent.
able to drive the car for the rest of the day, and we continued to rip it up. It was good. I'm
Can we
not
see a
going to.
photo?
No, we
Come
can't.
on,
We're
I
not
want to
going to show a
see.
photo here, Paul. I promise
Train
I might
wrecks,
show you a
train
photo.
wrecks.
I might show you a photo
Let
offline,
Dave,
but I
let's
do want to know. So, how many of these have you done, Paul, over the years?
Uh, I was just telling the doctor this because he thought it was a new thing. I would say in the last 25 years, over 100
we're talking about
Okay,
rallies. We're talking about
rallies.
rallies,
correct,
viewers and listeners. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Driving rallies with cars
I
on
like, so,
Spirited
by the
roads.
way, we call it rallies because that's sort of the colloquialism with our little like guys into it. For the average person, like my doctor, I could not call it a rally because then he turned rally into when are you going to be doing the race? It's
Right.
basically, I keep telling people it's a vintage car tour. That's what we're doing. We're doing a tour on public roads, not a race, not a timed event.
All right. So we're going
And
to talk about
oh
Dave.
yeah, carry on.
We'll talk about Luft here in a second because I know that's the other thing that you did this week. So Casey, I think I know what your answer is. But what did you do in cars this week?
I didn't do much other than exactly what we're going to talk about in the upcoming segment, but I wanted to give a shout out. I won't bring it out in the next segment, but there's this great shop in North Carolina named Sonderworks, and the owner of this group that really builds awesome cars was kind enough to make my dog three specific Porsche fabric bandanas. The photo is cut off a bit, but you can see this one is a nice houndstooth with a Gunner
Houndstooth the
Racing
Hound.
built 966 in the background. So that is the shout out that I will give in this segment, and I'm happy to go more into it later. But it was an awesome time.
And that
It was wild.
and that was the perfect car show dog. She was very calm. She didn't mind the crowd. She was a very sweet pooch.
Now she was wiped out that night for sure. Golly, she was really tired. But no, awesome. We'll talk more about it here shortly.
I bet you at Luft, it was an easy 5 mile walk, just walking around seeing all the things easily.
Yeah, and that was too much for a dog with bad back legs, which is what we're dealing with now. So
Yeah.
all is good though. Now all is good. She's chilling out in the other room right now, so we're good.
So, Paul, what did you do in cars this week?
Um, well, besides the FOMO from being at home and not there, which by the way, I was supposed to go to that Luftgekühlt back in 2020 when it was going to be in North Carolina. And they were doing this whole cross country tour, which I've always wanted to drive all the way across country.
Whoa.
And it would have been the perfect time because there was a group of people that were doing it with support and drive out there. And it would have been tied into Charles Target, Carolina. And so when I saw it all, what made it bittersweet was the fact that we were supposed to do that trip in 2020. And I was kind of hoping that they would reignite that cross country tour. It was basically like, hey, everyone, meet in Utah. And then there's like three more stops across country, tag into Target, Carolina, which I know Charles has been bugging me to go. But instead, I had to just wallow around in Orange County car culture, which was okay. And there's a club called the Finish Line here in Orange County. It's like all of these other private car condominiums that are ridiculously expensive. I mean, $2 million is the starting point for an unfurnished place to put five cars. One of the owners in there, a friend of mine, Kip, his Instagram Swank Rides, if you get a chance to check it out, he decided that they were going to try to break the world record of number of 300 SLs gathered in one place. And some of my other clients who have condos in there were sending me pictures, which I'm not allowed to post, of the transports bringing cars in from all over. They had 76 300 SLs in that showed up at this venue. And if you go to my Instagram, I tried to post it. I have sort of a quick time video of all of it. But here's the funny thing. One of the better parts of that, and I was sitting there looking at, was as I'm standing there waiting for it, an Enzo pulls in and just parks. Like this is just regular, plebe parking. And I was trying to think, and I was standing next to a friend of mine. I was like, when was the last time you saw just an Enzo? like not on the Concord Italiano, but just this guy came to Cars and Coffee for Mercedes, and there was Enzo. And then what made it better, and I kind of kicked myself for not taking a picture of both, this parked right next to it. I mean, talk about like to have these two cars parked next to each other and no one really cared. And I'm looking at them, and I got to tell you, I think the Enzo aged better. And then going back to the SLs, there was a
So
whole line of.
let's
Go
point
ahead.
this out. So people, some of, we have a lot of
I
iTunes
know,
listeners.
I know. Here we
So
go.
we're showing an Enzo and we're showing a Carrera GT.
And
That's
I
basically,
chose the Enzo. I
yeah, he
know.
chose the Enzo. So
I think the kicker is it's silver. Silver and white Enzos are super dope.
Yep.
Black and red Enzos are pretty boring, but silver Enzos that really does an awesome job showing off the lines of that car.
but what do you guys think
Oh,
about
is
what he
that the
just
same
said?
owner?
No.
No, no,
Sorry, Tim.
two different guys, two totally like if you would have seen him, this guy was your older, kind of sophisticated Ferrari, not wearing red shoes, kind of subtle guy. This guy, I'm sure, is a Lambro. He had like a gnarly banner across the windshield, which I took off with some kind of vulgar thing. I mean, you could see inside he's got like race seats. It, I mean, maybe that's what detracted from it, but like looking at the front of these, this looks very late 90s, early
It
2000s.
does.
But this, especially when you look at current Ferrari design language, I think this is such a pretty car. And when it first came out, I thought it was too Formula One. It was like they put pontoon fenders on a Formula One car, and I think over time it has aged better. Now,
Those headlights look way different in that color. Like the headlight shape and so on, just obviously the silver really accentuates that headlight shape
I
versus
agree.
when you see it in black or something.
yeah, and so going back to what Casey said, I don't know if it was red or black like you see these, if I would have liked it as much. I don't know if it was the fact that I can't remember the last time I saw one even at a Cars and Coffee in Southern California of all places. So it just sort of kind of caught me off guard and was sort of that, when you see it at a car show, it's like something unusual. And the irony is everyone's so focused on all of these Mercedes that no one really is looking at it.
Can we go back to that? So you said there are nearly 80 300 SLs there.
'76,
Do you
yeah.
guys have any clue how many 300 SLs are still alive? Like how many still exist? I don't
Mm.
either. So there's no way you'd know this, but I wonder how many of those were domestic, like US based 300 SLs versus people that brought them in just so they could have them at that, though it
Oh, I
wasn't,
mean, no, no. These were all. Here's the irony: these were all Southern California based.
that's incredible, honestly.
Because what they were doing is a lot of people. I would say 90% of the owners of condos in that facility. That's sort of like a measuring contest. They all have huge Love Me warehouses, garage mahals, or whatever you want to call it, outside, anywhere in the valley to San Diego. So they were bringing in SLs from their other location. But you're right, and there was a couple. There was a really insanely nice done SLR. I was super excited, like, oh my God, there's an SLR. But then someone reminded me that there's what two in the world, and I think the museum has them both. But then they had this whole row of what I really liked, which were they were basically a group of Colorado Grand SLs that
Wow.
didn't bother to clean themselves afterwards. And what was really because it ended a week ago. So there was like 10 the dirtiest I've ever seen an SL. And
Isn't that incredible that that car is from the early 1950s? When you look at
yep,
those things and just isolation, it is so beautiful. I don't know if they're
yep.
like to
I mean,
drive. I've never driven one, but wow.
yeah, I was going to ask, Paul, have you driven one?
I drove one once. I don't fit really well. That's why the steering wheel does this whole tilt thing to get in. But from what I understand for friends of mine who do rally them, outside of like they're like a 356. They're very contemporary to drive, and that's why they're so popular on Mille Miglia, California Mille, Colorado Grand, all of these high end rallies because you qualify and you have a car that I talked to Magnus. He drove one. Mercedes gave him one to drive in the California Mille, or no, the Mille Miglia, and he said outside of just the hours they were in, he he goes, I can't imagine being in any other car. It was very, very doable. So I
He's
think they're
super
really cool.
tall. He's like 6'2". He's like Casey height.
And
Yeah.
he was with his now wife at the, his girlfriend at the time, but he's with his wife who's also, 6 foot tall, and
He's
they
super
had their
tall
hats
too.
on
Yeah.
and they fit in there. He said the only thing is, in the gull wings, it does get warm. It gets really warm.
Yeah. All right. So pop quiz. You guys ready? All right.
No.
The Nürburgring Dare. Oh, I made them a lot harder. All right.
Oh,
So the Porsche test drive. So this is I think the first time I did this to annoy you guys, Dave was actually on his rally. So Dave, here's the deal. I'm going to give you guys a quiz question. Then I'm going to give you 4 answers and you have to choose which one is right. And I'll tell you the worst at this so far is Kramer, so don't listen to him. All right, Porsche test drivers often set lap records around the Nürburgring. What bonus did one test driver say was waiting if you kept the throttle pinned through certain blind crests? Option A, an extra second off your lap time. That sounds like a nice Germanic answer, right? Option B, free beers at the factory. Option C, a seat in the hospital. Option D, a date with a Michelin tire girl. All right. So if you kept the throttle pinned on the Nürburgring, which of those 4 things was waiting for you according to a Porsche test driver? Who wants to go first? Paul.
I mean, my first thought was I was hoping one of the answers was you get air because I figured you would get air somewhere
You're
doing that.
procrastinating. Answer, son.
Free beers at the factory.
Okay, free beers. Casey, you're next.
Hospital seat, hospital bed.
That was my second guess.
Yep.
Dave, you're next.
I was going to go with the second off lap time. I'll just be. It's clearly not beers at the factory. That would violate some kind of regulations, I'm sure.
Here's the answer. According to test drivers, if you stay flat through certain blind crests, it's hospital or hero, not officially sanctioned, but very Porsche. Casey, have you gotten one of these wrong yet?
Probably not. They're too easy.
It's hard to be humble
Who's
when you're
keeping
that
score,
good.
though?
Remember, I'm the realist of this group. I am the realist of this group. If they trust me, if they could go faster, they go faster. Seeing those guys lap that thing is terrifying. So
Yeah.
definitely not cutting a second off of that. That's for sure.
When we were going to Germany, and my dad really truly didn't understand the Nürburgring. I think one of the videos I sent him was like Jörg Burmeister or Dumas. Remember, he set that crazy lap record. I go, yeah, here's what it looks like. Which is
You've
video
been on.
games.
You've
Six
been
and a
on
half
the
minutes later.
You've been on the Nürburgring. I've only done it on a simulator and I've seen videos of it. It is freaking terrifying on my simulator. I cannot imagine what it feels like at speed in a freaking car in the passenger seat. You just have
I
to
mean,
close
all I
your
could
eyes.
say is I am so glad I went in a lower horsepower car that was a dual clutch.
Yeah.
Because you're so busy. And when they talk about blind, like I think 80% of the turns are blind. And I don't know how anyone just hops in the car without an instructor. Because I mean, I like it took 5 laps to feel like I wasn't going to die. And that's where you break the point where, like, okay, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars and become a Nürburgring junkie, or you just like go cold turkey.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. Automotive news. All right. So hopefully, let me see. Yes, you guys have. All right, Casey, why don't you go first? Because I thought you have a couple good, interesting points. And I think I know of all these cars you're talking about. So automotive news, Casey Parkin.
So the thing that stuck out in my mind the most this week is Porsche pulled their WEC factory supported Penske team from racing for the 2026 calendar year. It's a bit of a bummer because traditionally in the history of Porsche, the factory teams are the cars that are able to win Le Mans. And they, of course, got thwarted by Ferrari these last couple of years, and it's a bummer. I do know that they're still going to be supporting customer teams in the 2026 year to run in the WEC, but they're basically putting focus on Formula E, which unfortunately I have no interest in. And they are still going to be supporting the Penske team in the IMSA for IMSA 963 racing, which is good in the hypercar class, but honestly, every manufacturer wants to win Le Mans, and I believe they're cutting themselves a little bit short. I can imagine that it cost a tremendous amount of money to support, a couple of cars to run Le Mans every year and continue development, but it's a little bit of a bummer nonetheless.
Yeah.
Casey, I have a quick question about it. Is this because of one of two things or both? One, obviously, because of backing out of EV and less commitment. And we saw the charts from the podcast a couple of weeks ago where Porsche is going to be less profitable, so they need the money. Or is it that they don't think they have a really clear, like they want to hedge their bets and they don't have a clear idea that they think they really can dominate Le Mans or the big races, so they just rather support a privateer?
I think it's a little bit of both. I believe, especially in the United States IMSA racing, the balance of power on the 963 has been quite neutering through this year. They're cutting back the power that it makes and adding weight. And that, I mean, if you look at the first half of this IMSA season, the car was absurdly dominant. And then the second half of the season, it was really tempered back. I believe there's a lot of that, but I really believe it all comes down to dollars and cents. They do
100%.
still want to make the attempt at making electric vehicles work for the cars that they do have coming out. So I believe that's still why they're leaning into Formula E, especially because they are so dominant. And I think sports car racing is still very big in the United States, and I do believe that a lot of that is supported through, local or American-based companies. So it's less of an expense than having the factory specifically doing all of these long endurance races for the World Endurance Championship.
It's got to be about the money, honestly. I mean, they're, hemorrhaging money, it would seem. I'm going to throw this out there. I thought this was interesting. At Luft, we had an informal little meetup with a couple that they're Chinese, but they're living here full time, married couple. And he had a 964. It wasn't Polar Silver, but yeah, he had a 964. Don't worry, I'm not going to bring it up, Casey. I promise we wouldn't. And I know it hurts too much, but I mean, yeah, okay. So I won't do it. All right. And here's the thing. I was asking him what the deal with Porsche and their sales falling in China. And he told me some things that I haven't read anywhere. And here's the bottom line. He said in China, the Chinese tariff the hell out of any imported cars. He told me that the last time he was in Beijing, which was in the last 18 months, he said in downtown Beijing, it was super quiet, all because there were no, yeah, they were all basically EVs and they're all Chinese EVs. So the reason that Porsche sales dropped in China was because Chinese basically killed Porsche sales. That was one thing. And then he was a Porsche enthusiast at Luft, and I asked him, well, explain, do Chinese not like vintage cars and all the rest of it? And he said they do, but again, the Chinese government taxes the hell out of any old cars similar to what they do in Japan. So I just thought those little bits of information had been missing from the whole story that the Porsche was saying about they just said our sales dropped off in China. Well, they dropped off in China because essentially, Porsche's cars became too expensive compared to the Chinese counterparts. I thought that was kind of interesting. Yes, Casey.
Well, the other thing we can look back at is, this happened another time in Porsche history. Porsche did a huge amount of development following the GT1 for a program called LMP 2000. And they basically, Wendell and Wiedeking, the president of Porsche at that time, said we can do two things. We can either go back to win Le Mans following the 1998 season, or we can make this thing called the Cayenne. So it all came down to money. And of course, the Carrera GT evolved out of the LMP 2000 program. So it's just history repeating itself again. There are ebbs and flows in the economy, ebbs and flows in how much money a business makes. And, while we would all like to go out and party every night, sometimes you have to go to bed early to go to work.
Yeah, well stated. All right, on automotive news, Dave.
Well, part of me found this interesting just because I normally don't see too many Lucid electric cars in the area that I'm in here. But when we were on our way to Luft, obviously in the Raleigh-Durham area, there was quite a number, really a large number of Lucid Airs that I saw. Then this particular story popped up about how their sales in Q3 have jumped 47%, which I thought was either they're selling zero cars and now they're selling a few,
There
or
you
I thought
go.
that was a pretty big jump.
Yeah. Well, I bet you that's
But
exactly what it is, honestly. I bet you it's just manipulation of the statistics. But sorry, go ahead.
well, ultimately, I think it's really because the tax credit was expiring, right? So I think wasn't it the end of this month where the $7,000 tax credit was going away on these EVs. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with this EV market. And to me, with Lucid in particular, because they're just launching this car behind me is an image of their Gravity, which is their small SUV. Let me see if I can cover that up. It's
So
not a
where
bad
are these
looking
cars?
little SUV.
Are these American made?
Yeah, they're made in
Yeah,
Northern California. So, I mean, the thing about the
yeah,
Lucid, and this is unfortunate, is the tax credit. Lucid's products have been a premier product, so the tax credits were almost irrelevant, and they are phenomenal vehicles, and they're even better used vehicles because they just depreciate like a brick. But the sad thing
yeah.
is, I mean, they're all Tesla guys that figured they could build a better mousetrap, and they really did. There's some amazing technology with these lightweight motors that they built. That the sad thing is, they started with like this great sedan, like this SL competitive sedan or S class competitive sedan, but no one's buying sedans, let alone luxury sedans. And then finally, when they come up with the product Dave has, which is going to appeal, which is going to be more affordable with their killer technology, where the tax credit would really actually benefit, it's gone. And I think sadly, although that's probably going to be a great car, I think it's going to be the nail in the coffin to that company. I hope not, because I would say Rivian and Lucid are probably the two best hopes for electric technology
Yeah.
development. But I could see Lucid getting torn apart. GM buys the technology for the motors. Someone, just basically the big manufacturers just buy up. And hopefully it stays with US manufacturing. I'd love to see if it goes that way, GM buy some of the technology, Ford buy some of the technology between the two and not have it go export. But we'll see.
Mr. Kramer,
The cars look very nicely built. They really
They
seem
are.
of high quality. The feature sets and so on, they're attractive cars, which is why I spotted them, right? I mean, you're seeing one down the road. You don't see a lot of the sedans, obviously, and I've seen none of this SUV, but
I have even
um,
local where they're really. I mean, there's a huge place, big service center right near our shop. I haven't seen that locally yet, but anxious. All right, so Tim, my big news, which it, it's very cursory, it's very early. It's the idea that Toyota and Mazda are going to collaborate, and now people look at Toyota and Mazda as probably more of a competitor than Toyota and Nissan because Nissan's barely even existing. And it was sort of rumor, but even as early as a week ago, a bunch of people or journalists came up to Toyota and really pushed them hard, like, "Are you guys partnering with Mazda?" And what was the quote? "We cannot comment about speculation about future product," which is basically no comment is they're going to do something. Now the big question is, what are they going to do? The Mazda Miata and the GR86 are different products. They appeal to different people. But then, the GR86 already is it's kind of like our last hope for a new car that's affordable, rear wheel drive, manual transmission. But they partner obviously with Subaru. And the biggest challenge is they haven't had enough power. And then you've got Toyota already partnering the Supra with BMW. BMW is basically making the convertible. Toyota's making the coupe. Nissan is sort of floundering around trying to figure out how to get the 400Z. And my big concern of this partnership is, are we going to lose one of these two products? Which, I mean, you can't lose the Miata. It's iconic. It's your gateway drug to sports car ownership. And how many rear wheel drive manual transmission sports cars under 50 grand are left for sale in the US?
well, what's also interesting is how many folks are going to sort of, cross the bridge from having a bunch of cars and end up back buying an original Mark One Miata, which actually brings me to a story that I found. And I don't know if you guys saw this as well, but Mazda is actually doing complete restorations on only on their Mark One Miatas, and they're doing them in Japan. And I did as much homework on this as I could, and it looks like it's about a $60,000. Oh, someone's going to pull it up for me. I think it's Dave. Thank you, and show it on YouTube. So if you guys are on
I mean,
YouTube, yeah, you can see. And the essence of the story is that you can ship them your Miata, which I don't know why you would, or you can just have them source one in Japan. They're left-hand drive, so it all works, and then they'll do a complete restoration. I couldn't figure out if they'll let you change colors and things like that. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of cool because what
What
I
are they
think
going to charge?
All in, if I did
60.
the conversions right, it's like 50 to 60 grand. And that did not include the car. And it takes 6 months.
I mean, the
Oh, that's
six
pretty
months is
quick.
good. 50 to 60 grand is a lot considering you can go out and buy like an amazing first edition Miata
That's
for
what we
10 or
did. I
20
mean,
grand.
we bought it. Julie and I bought a black with red 93 limited edition, which was the original one. And I think if I remember correctly, it has 8 or 9,000 miles on it. We brought it off Bring a Trailer for delivered. It was 23 grand. So I
Right.
actually agree with you, but finding those cars is super hard because most of them got crapped out. So in any event, it's fun that we're all talking about the joys of owning inexpensive cars as we move on to the next topic, which is talking about Luft, the exact opposite of inexpensive cars. All right. Okay, so let's roll in. I'm going to start out by saying I've never been to a Luft before. I was messaging Paul, and I know I used the word overwhelmed to describe the experience because that is what it felt like. It was overwhelming from so many different levels. I still can't really, I don't know where to place it in my mind in terms of all the other car things I've been to. We've been to car things, Julie and I, in Europe and California and just all over the place, but nothing was as cool as Luft. And it was, I'm trying to, and hopefully you guys can help me to express to the audience who's never been to one why they need to go. Even if you're not a dyed-in-the-wool Porsche nerd, the reality of it is being at an event where it's not just a traditional car show, where there's not freaking vendor alley, where there's not loud, horrible music from the 1960s and 70s playing in the background. It doesn't have that whole vibe. It is almost like a museum environment meets, I don't know how to describe it. Can you guys help me out?
No, I think, and actually this is a picture of this is our Tortuga when it was about a year old with us. This is in 2000, I want to say 14, and this was Luft 2. And it was at Bandito
Where
Brothers,
was
which
that,
was
Paul?
it was in Bandito Brothers, which was a design studio in Venice Beach. And it was the beginning of them realize, and it was a very nowhere near curated like what you guys experienced, but it was the beginning of a curated show and kind of breaking the mold of the traditional car show. And being friends with Pat Long, he loves these cars. He hates going to like a Cars and Coffee where you have to weed through a bunch of stuff to maybe see a car that's wedged in a parking space that you can't really take a good picture. You can't even get around it. And he's like, I really want to stage these in a way. And really, the key was when he brought Jeff Swart in, you got a photographic eye. And so this is a show. I don't know if they intentionally did this, but it was really how do we get a venue where we can showcase these cars from the viewpoint of a photographer, and that's why it's so photogenic, and that's why the backdrops are so important, and it's really really hard to get these new places and surprise. And I had a feeling it was going to be at American Tobacco
Yep.
Yeah.
Campus.
because I think that's where they were going to be the first time, and I kind of strong armed
It was
Pat
so freaking incredible.
because I strong armed Pat Long like where is it? And I kind of put two and two together back in 2020. I remember looking at Google's shots. I was like, oh, this venue is going to be fantastic.
so just to kind of build on this, there's no like big field. There's no big ass parking lot where cars are all lined up. And I'll give you guys an advanced player tip if you're going to go to one of these, which everyone should. The day before when they're setting up, in my mind, was more enjoyable than the actual day of the show. Because the actual day of the show, there's lines, there's massive amount of people, hard to get a picture. But the day before the show, when all the trucks are unloading and they're trying to wedge all these cars in these impossible places, it's like automotive Jenga. For example, Julie and I were walking down this, it was basically a bridge, and there was this little alcove, and the alcove was about 13 and a half feet long. Does anyone know how long a 356 is?
Oh,
Probably
About
13 and a
13
half feet.
yeah.
exactly about 13 and a half feet. And what they were trying to do is, so it was a rectangle, right? They wanted to park the 356 in long ways. And so they had to figure out a way to lift the 356 in millimeter by millimeter, with a floor jack, just push it back in this space. Now they eventually gave up and they ended up parking it, perpendicular to the back, but still watching them go through all that was incredible. Hearing all the cars start as they came off trailers, especially like what Casey's got behind him, the old 550s. I watched that car getting unloaded. I mean, it just was exhilarating. And I have to say, I liked it actually more. I shouldn't say this, but I liked it more than Car Week. I really did. That one day was better than freaking 3 days of Car Week in Monterey. And I don't think, and it just because it was more in alignment with, you know, I don't know, it was just more relaxed. The people were just truly exceptional. That's the other thing. It's hard to
So
really.
let's set up the space for those that aren't actually like haven't been. So American Tobacco was obviously, North Carolina known for its tobacco. This was an old factory. I'm not sure if it was purely Lucky Strike, but Lucky Strike cigarettes were certainly made at this factory at some point. So this is a situation. The image behind me is the Durham Bull Stadium, which has been integrated in. It was built as part of this redevelopment. So this is where the Durham Bulls play. If you look behind me, that's Mark Donohue's 917 back in there that they rolled out into the middle of second base there on the night before the event started. And then for the ultra VIPs, they had some sort of special presentation that was there on the field. So that was super cool the night before. They had a big party, but this place is like multi-level, and around every little corner is like an old section of this factory that they've redeveloped into either office space or retail or restaurant. And the ups and downs, the water features that ran right down through the middle of it, just a stellar place where this thing was held. And then who doesn't love brick, right? So the brick was just everywhere. It was all old school brick, and these cars were just jammed in here, but beautifully set up. So you'd never had more than maybe three or four cars together in any one section. And then you'd just walk into different places, and everything was kind of a discovery. You would just see things that were just, amazing cars in amazing venues. And I would certainly agree with you, Paul, that I think Jeff Zwart played a big role in that. And the other thing, like the picture that Casey, I'm sure, Paul, you were at the lumberyard version of this, right? Because
Yep,
I think the
I brought that
lumberyard,
car to the lumber yard.
there you go. I think the lumberyard spawned all of the wood that they use now. Like that was one of those
It
things that they added during that version, which I think was, I don't know, number eight or number seven. I can't remember which,
it
but
was
using that lumber, and they get fresh lumber and they band it together and they do all these things and put these cars up on it, like the 550 that Casey has behind him there.
Well,
Just really neat that stuff has continued.
Casey, can you go back to the slide you had up prior to this one, the one where the 550 was sitting in front of that ridiculously like 10-story? All right, I'll just set this up and then Casey, I'd love to hear from you. That thing behind that 550, I don't know how many stories it was. It was, I would say at least 3 stories, maybe 4 stories tall, and I'm pretty damn sure that was some sort of steam, hot water, something or another. It was
The boiler.
insane. Yeah, in essence, yeah. But it was just extraordinary. So Casey, I mean, you hadn't been to a Luft. This was your first one too, right?
So it is, and the only one of these that I've ever been to like this before was Air Water a few years ago, which Paul and I have talked about, and I plan on going out in springtime next year to Air Water again. I will, as Tim mentioned, it was absolutely overwhelming. I am not a crowd person. And for the couple of listeners that came up to me and talked to me, one specifically, because it took me a second to figure out where I was in space and time at that moment. But there's a guy named Tim, who is a listener, and he actually bought a silver GT3 from Paul. He came up to me and started talking to me, and I was so confused as to what was happening at that moment because I was recognized from doing this. And it was quite mind blowing. But it took me like until he walked away. He's like, "Yeah, I bought a GT3 from Paul," and I was like, "Who's Paul?" And then I was like, and then like 5 seconds later, it all clicked. But it was, as Tim mentioned, the positioning, the cars were insane. My favorite space in the whole place was where this 550 was behind me. This room probably had, I mean, I have no idea what the first 550 is worth, but let's just say there was $35 million worth of cars in that room. The most and Dave has a better picture of it up right now. But if you
That's
see the
the
picture,
overhead shot.
yeah, the car in the background is my buddy Bob's fish scale silver bent window 356, which I'm around a lot because it's a local to us. But Bobby Rahall's like cream yellow 904 was in there, and that was the car I wanted to see most of this whole thing. I've seen 55001 a couple of times before, but I mean there were I don't know if I have another picture of it, but there were three America Roadsters there, real
Yeah.
ones, 1952s, and they were insane. Like it's like they had the one sitting on the National Mall from Road Scholars a couple of years ago, which was awesome. And other than I think a silver one that I saw at the Porsche Museum, I'd never seen one before, but there were three of them there. But this room that's behind Dave and behind me in these pictures was insane. And
It's
um,
Casey, sorry to interrupt, but it's worth mentioning there were three of them and there are all these other special cars, but these aren't behind ropes. These aren't, some sort of snobby ass, you know, vibe to it. You could go up to the cars. I'm sure you don't want to manhandle them that much, but you could completely interact with the vehicles. And there aren't security people walking around or people checking wristbands or making sure you have the right colored lanyard. So, it really made it very approachable and very accessible.
the only security type people that I saw where there were people dressed in Penske uniforms around the Mark Donohue car,
Hmm.
because that along with the 55001 were probably the most valuable cars there if I had to bet. There are a few cars less storied other than maybe like a Rothman's 962 or a Golf liveried 917 that really play to that era of insanely cool motorsport. And I thought it was insane. My favorite part of it, and Tim, I'm sad that you couldn't have gone there that evening, is in the evening of Saturday, my buddy Yuri and I went to this shop that Dave was at, and we just sat there and talked for a long time. In this cool space, there was a bunch of Sonderworks cars there, and I got to pick over them. And I'll promise you, I am very particular, and I don't mean to, even if I didn't know Dave and didn't do business with him before, I would tell you that the quality of the work that he does compared to some of the other builders that cost a lot more money that I saw represented there, the work was insane. And I also got to meet another listener and a guy that's become a friend, Marshall, who is, I believe he knows Paul and Dave and of course Tim. But we stood there and talked for like 45 minutes and had a watered down old fashioned, and it was a killer night. And it's been a while since I've done something like this. The only thing that I believe tops Luft as far as this is I really love to see cars in motion. So Rennsport for me will always be peak because there's nothing better than seeing like the car behind me, this 934. I think that's a 934. It looks like one, or it's either the 934 or an early RS. Actually, it's probably an early, like a 74 RSR. But seeing something like that lapping a track, shooting 4 feet of fire out of the back of it, I think that to me is peak. But as far as a static display, I don't believe anything beats Luft.
Yeah. And
Well, let me drop some scoop here because I actually heard, Casey, that Rennsport was going to then appear next year, and Rennsport will be in Daytona Beach
Hmm.
this year or this next coming one. So it's been on the 3-year cycle, and I heard that it was going to be in Daytona. It's been at
Monterey.
Monterey and Laguna Seca for the last couple events, but I'm told this time
See,
it's going to
that
be
that
at
would to me that would be highly
Daytona.
unusual considering that Porsche just spent a ton of money to be the key ownership sponsor at Laguna Seca. It used to be Mazda Raceway, WeatherTech Raceway. It's now Porsche. They're doing their experience center there. If it's at Daytona from a financial standpoint, I have no idea why they would do that.
Well,
But
let's see
Florida's
if the
probably a
scoop is
lot cheap.
correct or not. Let's
Yeah.
see if the
yeah.
scoop is right.
Well,
That
I
was
hope it
just dirt.
happens. I mean,
Yeah, me too.
I hope Rensport happens again. To me, I don't think there's anything cooler than that. And I got
Um,
to, two other quick things and then I'll turn it over. My good buddy Steve that runs Gowden Porsche, their classic department, they won the preservation for the Porsche Restoration Challenge. And our friends at Harper Porsche, who are listeners of the podcast, They took home the People's Choice Award for their Chroma Flare Carrera RS, which looked really amazing in person. So kudos to both of those guys.
That was a
Cool.
very cool car. I don't know if you guys like Chroma Flare or not. Maybe your first impression is it's too flashy, but Julie and I sat down and just to take a little break, and that Chroma Flare car was right in front of us, and it just sort of sold itself to you. You know, you just sort of fell in love with it. It was really, really well done, you know. As far as Dave, your experience, I do want to say this, and Marshall from Oklahoma and all these other folks that we met, I was that was what really caused me to feel overwhelmed. The feedback from the folks that are part of our Full Throttle Talk community was extraordinary. And the people that were coming up to us and the people that were just so nice and so sweet, and Casey's right, the lack of formality when they started with conversations with us, it wasn't, hi, I'm, Bob from Oklahoma. It's they just picked right up on some topic we had on the podcast. And if you were sort of buffering, you would, have the experience that Casey did, which I had a few times. But the very fact that we had so many people that were so sweet, so nice, made me feel amazing, honestly, considering we just started this thing less than a year ago, Full Throttle Talk, and to be around people that so thoroughly appreciate and enjoy what we're doing meant the world to me, honestly. And, it really did change my perspective on it. It made me feel more tied into the Porsche community than I ever have before, getting to know a lot of more of these people and how gracious they are. So that was my big takeaway, I would say. Dave, what about yours?
Well, I'm kind of curious. Is that as opposed to Ferrari people, Tim? What are you trying to say there?
No, no.
The
Okay,
Porsche.
well, since you asked, I'll answer your question. I'll say that the Ferrari people, a majority of the Ferrari people are Ferrari people, especially when they go to Ferrari events. Their primary objective is not the cars. Their primary objective, and I know some people are not going to like me saying this, but it's still true, is networking. A lot of folks get into the more expensive cars because they want to network. They want to get to know other high net worth people. Sorry, true. And that's the reason you join a country club, and that's the reason you learn how to play golf. The Porsche vibe was not like that at all. Those people there were to talk about cars. They just wanted to be around like-minded enthusiasts. There was no posturing, or nobody was checking to see if you're wearing this or the other thing. None of that was going on. So I would say, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's one of the things about the Porsche community and the diversity, which we've talked about before, in age and financial background and everything related to Porsche, because you had cars that were there, and if you look at them, there was beaters that were there, right? I mean, cars that were certainly not a Concours quality car. And I think that's certainly one of the things that I love about Luft is that you've got people that are really driving this car. I don't know if you saw, there was a friend that has a 356 that's kind of an aquamarine color 356 that's probably got 300,000 or 400,000 miles on it at this point, and the bottom falls right out of the car. He just keeps driving this thing, and it was featured prominently right near the entrance. And I think that's one of the draws. It's that people keep driving them. All these cars are still on the road. People are trying to keep them going. That's why I feel like I picked a really good business, because there's demand for this stuff, and it comes from all over the age range and so on.
Were you guys surprised? He mentioned age. Did you guys notice that essentially it was definitely older? And I don't know if that's true in California. I doubt if it is.
No.
Okay. In the Rally Durham for that Luft, it was definitely people that were, I would say, 45 and older for sure. A minority of the people were younger people. And I went and sought out the millennial types, and I was asking them, just trying to, get a sense of the market for the sake of the show. And they're all, I would say most of them were not dyed in the wool old Porsche fans. They were newer Porsche fans, and this was a Porsche event they were going to with their dad or whatever. That was my observation. Casey or Dave, do you have any feedback on that?
I I I mean, I'll put it this way. Trying to make sure I wasn't going to run into somebody was probably priority one, is noticing the ages of people around me. But I would tell you, I might say it's skewed a little bit, possibly a little bit younger than what you were talking about. I think maybe 35 to 50 was probably the key demographic that was there. And there may be some maybe 35 to 60 was probably the prominent age. And another thing that was interesting is I also saw a lot of women there. I mean, my wife went, and she really enjoyed herself.
Well,
So,
along those lines, you guys have all been to car shows where there's no lines for the men's bathroom and there's huge lines for the women's bathroom. Well, this one is the exact opposite, if that puts things into perspective. No line women's, long line for men's. But yes, I take your point.
yeah, and when I was saying earlier about meeting Tim that introduced himself to me, a buddy that's become a buddy, a guy that Paul knows really well, Trevor, that does the Pari Pari podcast that I love,
He
and
was great.
I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, but um, golly, other than the fact that I thought I broke his Leica camera, the such an awesome guy, and that's kind of I bet that's kind of how I felt. I mean, meeting him as I mean, because I listen to his podcast every week. To me, it's a calming thing, and I think it's a tremendous podcast. And he's a super good dude. So kudos to him, and thanks for taking the time to chat with me for a couple of minutes.
What's funny too is that everyone who is known to the podcast is trying to like, you guys don't have ads and you're not doing this, and you're not doing the other thing. Like everyone thinks that we have a financial motive for doing this, and we really truly don't. I mean, it's because we're all probably too stupid to figure one out, to be honest with you. Whoa, okay, with that said, we are looking for a title sponsor for the podcast. Haggerty, your name should be on every one of our videos that we're doing for sure. So we would have one great title sponsor. But other than that, I don't think any of us have any aspirations to really, monetize this. We want to keep it true to our mission as far as being for enthusiasts. So you have anything you'd like to share, Dave? I know you had some notes that I didn't get to.
Oh no, I mean just honestly, this we had a couple of different cars there, including the one that's now behind me, which is actually a '77 kind of hot rodded car that one of my employees actually has been restoring here in the shop, kind of during the weekends and the evenings, and he's pulling in, you know, techs and so on to put this car on the road. But this was sort of featured down the one of the main drags, not necessarily like in a big open field or something along those lines, but they had all these cars kind of staged a certain way, and this one sort of stood out where it was vertical versus being just parked horizontally. But this one was a great car, and it showed up at the party that Casey and I attended on the night after. They asked to bring this car there. Killer with the Pasha, black and white Pasha on the door cards. It's got the pole positions in it as well that are done in Pasha. Really came out nice, and I'm really proud of Rob, who's my service manager, who really did pour his heart and soul into getting this car back on the road. Because if you'd seen this car when I acquired it and then ultimately sold it to him, it was a real pile. So,
Yeah, it was
um,
super good to meet him too. Rob, and once Dave figured out that I was who I was, he's like, "Yeah, you just work with Rob." And Rob took super good care of me when we did the restoration work on my buddy's car that Sonder Works did. It was great to meet him. I gave him a big hug when I saw him.
And so
then
we
this
can give,
copper brown.
yeah, well,
Oh, go
let's
ahead,
give you,
Tim. I'm sorry.
no, this copper brown one that he's showing. If you guys are looking for a really, really well done SC, this car is gorgeous. When we were meeting folks, basically we were lingering around that car. Paint perfect, panel gap perfect, interior gorgeous, the whole thing. And I think reasonably priced by, considering how much obvious money went into this thing. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that we were fortunate. McGuire Wax asked us to bring a couple of cars, or at least one car. Was going to be two for a second, and then because one of them that they had arranged wasn't going to get there, but we brought this car instead. Uh, Beautifully featured in the same building where the 356s were. Just a fantastic spot. It was called the Cage was this area, so the building is kind of open, but the photos that were getting taken here were just amazing. The McGuire's folks were fantastic to us. They let us fire the car up near the end of the day. Um, but I'll talk about this car when we get into a this and that because I
Okay.
think I'm going to use this car as one of the two. So
So
Luft was fantastic.
in conclusion, Luft a 10 out of 10. And I will say this, if we wanted to start a business, I can tell you guys right now how we could actually make enormous amounts of money. We actually start a clone Luft t-shirt and hat business because they sold out so fast and people were pissed. I was carrying, Dave was kind enough to basically be in line and grab us some t-shirts early in the morning. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten any. And when I was carrying around the bag, I had three people come up and ask me if I'd sell the shirts.
Yeah.
How about
And
that?
and by the way, pro tip, most of that stuff is like the poster or whatever is available before. Some of it's available beforehand on their website. And then often what I do is I will buy stuff afterwards. I mean, they're in the business to not have limited production, so they will have a lot of it. So if you go, not that I'm promoting them. I mean, the problem is all of I have so much Luftwear, and it's made for people that look like Casey and all you three. It's like European cut. The hilarious thing is my daughter, who's not a car person, she loves all those shirts. So she wears them to call. She was wearing them at college, and people are like, "Oh, you're a Luftgekühlt fan?" She's like, "I don't even know what that is." And I'm like, "What's on your shirt?" But here, and just a
Can't
quick
say it.
question about Luftgekühlt. And we've had this conversation with friends, car friends. What, how could you do this? In what way would this be as successful in a not if you took Porsche out? Like, what brand could you do this of any other auto manufacturer or whatever? How could you do this could you do it with Ferrari? Could you do it with Corvette?
That's an
Those are
awesome
the only
question.
two that came to my mind. Yeah.
So, and I
I
know
would
that
think
there's a group in LA, and I wish I could have gone last weekend, and they're doing an event called Macchissima, which is, I think, the way you do Ferrari, which is all Italian. And it's all vintage or special Italian, and they're trying to curate it. It's almost become like, it reminds me of Luft back in 2014, and the first one that was at Deus Ex Machina that was even smaller. And ironically, I was invited to the first Luft. It was in the I don't know if you've been to Venice Beach, where that Deus Ex Machina, it holds like 10
tiny,
cars, and
tiny.
there's like a Thai
Yeah.
restaurant next door. And I was invited to come, and I was like, I'm not driving to Venice Beach this morning.
Well,
20
to answer your
miles.
question, Paul, BMW probably. I would say BMW. Kind
That's
of
probably good.
the same sporty bent.
And
I
they
don't.
got like a die in the wool enthusiast that will
Yep,
have the
and they're
the
not
variety.
super. Right, and they're not super expensive, and it's not a
Yeah.
super snob brand. And there's a lot of badass cars from the 80s and the 70s and whatever. I wouldn't say Mercedes. I wouldn't say, I don't know, BMW. That would have to be it.
I think, you know
Tim, what
what?
do you think about Corvette? What about
Ooh,
Corvette though?
I'm
well,
actually, despite the fact that I like to bring up Corvette all the time just to freaking poke Paul, I'm not that much of a Corvette. I love the new C8. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a game changer. But I'm not really into that world. I can't really tell you for sure.
you
Well, the
know,
nice thing about it is it has that similar lineage to Porsche in terms of you could be getting early cars and later cars, and the evolution, it would be very clear. There's tons more to pick from, obviously, as well. But
If
I
the
would bet
brand
if
is
you
interesting
curated
though,
something like that.
but I mean,
Say again?
Casey brought up, for example, Bobby Rahall's 904, the tan car, which was amazing. And like, is the Corvette as a brand, does it have as much depth and texture and interest? I'm not sure if it does. I'm not sure if
no.
it has that same level of just, I will say this, and I'll say this with love and respect. The level of people on the number of people on the spectrum, the autistic spectrum at this thing was off the freaking charts, which is fine, whatever, right? I mean, and if you weren't walking around with an expensive freaking camera, having all the thing, I mean, Casey, there were a lot of people there that made you, I mean, you had to have been standing there in awe of some of the details that some of these people knew. But I don't know if there's any other brand that has that level of pure enthusiasm meets intellectual horsepower. And I think that combination of things made it really feel special, at least to me.
I think you're right. I mean, it's outside of the cars part, it is like a watch and camera
Yeah,
show.
totally. Well,
I mean,
not
it's
even,
like
Trevor got a picture of my Speedmaster, and he's like, "You want to do a wrist shot?" I was like, "I don't know what that is,
okay,
man."
watch check. What do we got?
Uh, Nothing.
Casey's not wearing a watch again.
No.
Casey, you just need to like get a tattoo and like just call it a
Done.
day.
Yep.
Or
uh,
Casey, wear
uh,
the Formula One gloves with a watch that's printed on the gloves.
Oh yeah, that my IWC gloves. You got it.
Exactly. All right, what are you wearing,
uh,
Kramer?
early 90s, date just Rolex. It was the first nice watch I bought used.
Uh-huh.
So,
Very,
and
very
it's, and I only wear this for special occasions, and I'm wearing it this week because I'm going on a frickin' rally
Oh
on
yeah, we didn't
Friday.
bring that up. Congratulations. He's cleared to go
Thank
on
you.
his first official rally and
And yesterday was the first time I drove a car in 2.5 months.
Oh shit. I mean,
I'm
Oh,
shoot.
cleared to
good,
Congrats.
very
drive
good.
an
And
automatic.
bleep that out. I apologize. That's great, man. That's awesome, Paul.
Yeah.
And Dave,
Oh,
That is
Speedmaster from
Speedy.
Dave.
that's my 89 20th anniversary moon landing Speedmaster that I actually bought earlier this year from a friend. It's engraved on the side that has celebrating the moon landing and so on. So cool watch, nice little bit of patina on it, very cool. Kind of stuff I like. I'm not the guy that's going to spend $25,000 on a watch, I'm afraid, right? So, you know, this is just perfect for me though, and to add to my collection.
So Paul, tell us about driving.
Well, yesterday I went to the doctor and I asked him like, so can I go on the rally? And he's very, like Roman emperor. He's like, I don't see why not. And then I said, well, what about driving? And he goes, yeah, I think that's fine. He goes, just go to a parking lot and practice first. I think he was more concerned that I would be comfortable in position. So yesterday, my physical therapist, we went to the fairgrounds parking lot near our shop and got in my 2003 Jaguar, and it's my sedan. He said no manuals yet, but just automatic. And it really was the proverbial like getting back on the bike. I mean, it just felt normal. So when we go on this rally Friday, we have the rental Macan, and I'm going to be driving part of it, which is I'm super like you have no idea how excited. My wife said the only other time she saw me that excited is when I bought that Citroen SM, and
So
then
you're
and
bringing
then our
the Ed
wedding
with you?
was down lower.
So
So
is the
so
Ed coming?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's part of the deal. He's coming, and he's I think the doctor's excited because he has a 50-year medical background, so he's going to be making sure that everything's
your dad
right.
was a
But
doctor?
no, he ran a medical laboratory for 50 years.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
I mean, talk about a germaphobe and infectious disease. I mean, growing up with someone that wakes you up at 5 in the morning to draw your blood before going to work, and I mean, just the washing hands. I,
You
I
know
mean,
what? This explains a lot. Now it's all starting to make
it's all
sense.
coming clear.
Yep.
But yeah, and the funny thing was, and it's hard to explain. The surgery was 2 months and a week ago. But I'm basically walking, little Frankenstein. And even the doctor came in, and I was standing up. I can stand normal. And he's like, "When did you start standing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I got tired of sitting, and I just stood up." It's sort of like Forrest Gump breaking through his his shackles. But a week long, Northern Arizona, 20 to 30 cars. It's going to be it's a very small group curated, of friends. So it's a good starting point. And we're going to do another rally similar to that next year. And I'm hoping by then I'll be, back in my, you know, normal steed.
that's
And
awesome, man.
when we start doing full throttle talk rallies, Paul has volunteered to organize them. So go you.
I will do it. I'm good
Are
at
you
that.
serious, dude? That was
Yeah.
your number one rule when you started the podcast. You said you do not want to organize anything.
Yeah. I mean, I would do it more for self-preservation so we have something right. But like geographically, like if a rally is going to be in the East, mid-Atlantic, it's going to be a Casey Dave thing. I'm sorry, Tim, we're not doing the Puerto Rico rally.
You can go in circles.
Yeah,
Circles.
we could. Yeah, we'll just everyone bring your NASCAR.
It's more like a kidney shape, actually. All right, so
Perfect.
let's change topics. We can go through this one really quick because I thought it was interesting. I'm sure other people will as well, or maybe not. Let's talk wheels. All right, so I've been really interested in knowing why it is like what's the life cycle on cast wheels, forged wheels, carbon fiber wheels, magnesium wheels. What is all this? Like I don't, and I learned personally, I learned a ton researching this. I have been told the carbon fiber of all the wheel types are the most fragile and all the rest of it, but I don't want to step on my notes, so I did cut and paste them and put them in the spreadsheet. So, I mean, as far as designs and goes, I mean, let's really get into this. I mean, if someone's trying to decide about specking in their new Ferrari or they're specking in their new whatever, and there's different wheel options, the magnesium wheel option, the carbon fiber option, let's walk them through. And there you go. Well, there you go. I mean, that's
Sorry,
a
sorry. Casey did something. It had a trigger effect on me when he put the
You started
when he
twitching.
I
It was like,
started twitching when he put a cup wheel or
it's
a
a
speed
speed
line wheel.
exactly a speed line modular wheel. So let's just jump into this. I have no particular direction as to where to go, but Casey, you go first. You might basically knock it out of the park and we move on to the next topic.
no, I mean, I don't, when I saw this was proposed, there are wheels that I don't like. I look after a number of cars with, and I look at them from a liability standpoint, right? When I sold Porsches new, we would always talk about the specific type of wheels that if you were to curb the wheel, you would be able to get it fixed, right? So a painted wheel is a lot easier to fix than a wheel with a machine finished. But now as my career has shifted a little bit, I deal with a number of cars with carbon fiber wheels. I deal with a number of cars with magnesium wheels, and I can tell you that neither of those am I big fans of. Magnesium, I believe, has a shelf life. Um, Magnesium wheels from the early 90s, like 964 Carrera RSs. A lot of the wheels in cars that I look after, sorry, a lot of the cars that I look after, the wheels have been refinished. And if you don't know much about refinishing magnesium, I am not an expert on this, but it's super important to outgas the wheel before and sometimes put a coating on them prior to putting any sort of paint or powder coating on them because it will actually outgas through the wheel and cause marbling and almost look like the finish is rusting or bubbling off the wheel. So if you go look at a Carrera RS, just go take a 964, go take a look at the wheels because that's something you see. Compomotive wheels from the 70s and 80s Italian cars are very similar. And then the other thing that I'm not a huge fan of is carbon. Carbon is very fragile. I remember seeing the first carbon wheels that I ever really worked with were, I mean, on a manufacturer vehicle is, I think it was what the correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but like 2019 911 Turbo S, the gold package one, the one I'm talking about where they had the
The
optional.
exclusive, it was called exclusive something. Yeah.
Yeah, so those wheels, the finish, I've actually seen them peel off and turn different colors on those particular cars. And Porsche, if I'm not mistaken, had their own autoclave to put them together. So
Wow.
I'm a bigger fan of things that are more permanent. So cast or forged or CNC'd wheels or flow formed things made out of aluminum, I believe, are more timely and last a long time. And that is always where I would lean towards wheel knowledge. And I also not a fan of three-piece wheels either, other than the fact that speed lines are kind of the best wheel. I deal with the Diablo with OZ three-piece wheels that leak. I've had the wheels rebuilt by people that know what they're doing, and they still leak through the centers of the wheels, and it's just a headache that I don't believe needs to occur. I mean, everybody knows the Porsche Cup 1 wheel is probably the best wheel ever, and we should just stick with that.
So this
How'd it
is
go?
On any
I found
car, doesn't matter. Any car.
There you
Any
go.
car,
so look,
any car.
Porsche guidance for GT series magnesium wheels is a time mileage limit to replace every 10 years or 40,000 miles.
Yep.
And when researching this, I found that to be a little shocking because I've never heard that before. And so Casey, that the car that was in Monterey, that was the rebuild of the RS, the 964 RS.
Mhm.
Remember how hard it was? The guy was saying that they totaled the car. Haggerty had ended up totaling the car when one of the
Yep.
reasons was they couldn't find a new wheel. That's kind of, I mean, so I don't know.
Yeah, so to
This
throw
is
this
something.
back to give it some context,
Yeah.
Tim and I are talking about Tim was looking at bidding on a silver Carrera RS um, that looks surprisingly like my 964 that didn't make it to Luft, unfortunately. But we're not going
Oh,
to talk about that anymore. Um,
Oh, really?
but yeah, one of the reasons, so Haggerty got this car, it was in an accident. Porsche Cars North America and their classic program restored it, and they couldn't get a replacement wheel because the right rear was hit on the car. So they had to total it, and then they eventually were able to find a wheel and restored the car and sold the car for what I thought was decent money. But my buddy Ray was telling us the story. But yes, if you see real serious Carrera RS people, they will ask if the wheels have ever been X-rayed because they want to make sure that there are no cracks. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Dave has dealt with this, but early magnesium engine cases often become porous and start to come apart. My 964, the later 964s, they evolved to using aluminum parts rather than magnesium, such as valve covers, because they blister and expand under different heating and cooling. Um, yes, it's light. Yes, it's cool to say that you have magnesium wheels, but at the end of the day, I wish in the Porsche world, I wish the aluminum wheels looked cooler. Perhaps they can't because of the tensile strength and such that they need, but in all reality, magnesium, as Tim stated, has a shelf life.
Which is incredible. I didn't know that. I should have known that because in racing, and Casey, you know this too, because you and I are Formula One fans, those things, I don't even know how many laps they go around, but I know that they don't run the same wheels for more than one race. But here's the interesting thing. I learned this too about the carbon fiber wheels, and this is, of course, from Carbon Fiber Revolution's website. And they make the wheels for Ford, Ferrari, Corvette, all these carbon fiber wheels. It is actually kind of funny. A set of carbon fiber wheels from Carbon Fiber Revolution on a Ferrari is 50,000. Same basic wheels that are on a Corvette are like, less than half of that. So I don't know. Maybe it's a lot more money to import them in Italy. Who knows? But here's the fascinating part is the wheels are designed to last the life of a vehicle or longer. So the carbon fiber wheels actually have a longer shelf life than magnesium wheels who are spoiled milk in 10 years and you have to replace them. And I can guarantee you there are no 10-year-old magnesium wheeled 911 GT products out there who people are saying, I'm going to replace these wheels. That hasn't become, and it might be very well become, have you replaced your wheels? Have you scanned your wheels? And that could be a detriment. That could be your new, what is it? The 996.
IMS.
I thank you, sir. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, who knows? I'm giving you guys who are in the business more headaches to look forward to.
Oh, I mean, if a client asks me to, what's your X-rays on the wheels, I'm out. I'm done.
Bro, have you
I'll be
checked
retired by then, Paul.
over revs? No,
Over revs. And it's I'm showing a picture. I mean, I kind of experienced this when I bought this, what we call the Mad Cow. That's what it looked like when I bought it. It's hard to see in those pictures, but these wheels were factory 9s and 12 or 10s and 12 74 RSR magnesium center lock wheels.
That's
And
bad.
ultimately,
It's
I
cool.
had to switch them to the replica 917 aluminum wheels because they were 40-year-old wheels from like the mid early 70s. And what ended up happening is as I was driving on them, because why not? They started to crack and they started to leak. And I had a horrible drive to Monterey Car Week where every 45 minutes I had to get out and squirt like marine silicone into the valve stem and hope I can get another 45 minutes of driving. And I got really good at low tire pressure wheel recognition because the car would just shudder. And I had so many nightmares. And eventually, I sold those. Here's the thing is I sold those set of wheels for almost 10 grand back in 2008 because someone else who had a race car wanted it. And I'm just thinking, I said, hey, like three of the wheels work, one doesn't. I don't know when the other three are going to
but
go. And going back to what you said, Tim, there is a shelf life to
But
them.
don't you guys think this is like a big story? Because if essentially these magnesium wheels are, sketch after 10 years, and there's gazillions of Porsches out there with magnesium wheels and nobody's talking about it, I do not see how this is not going to be something that everyone should be aware of. And frankly, Porsche is going to probably make a fortune off selling replacement wheels.
By the way, a true E36 M3 lightweight, which I've owned three of them and sold probably 12 of the 120.
Wow.
They are magnesium alloy wheels because we've had to fix curb rashes on them. And I remember our wheel guys at our shop, when they have a lathe and they're spinning the wheel, and they're like, these wheels are they're not all magnesium, but those motorsport wheels, which say motorsport, are a magnesium alloy compound, which now, going back to you said, Tim, I don't know if it's a compound, is that make it stronger? You don't have to replace them often, but I know these wheels are very sought out by the BMW community to put on all their other cars. They look for the ones that say motorsport around the center hub, and I'm wondering, are they all magnesium, whereas just the 120 got them, and then the replacements aren't? I've asked people who are BMW, I call them Knights of the Roundel table, and they don't know what the real story of
So
that
two
is.
business ideas. Replica Luft swag All right. And
Yes.
then replacement magnesium wheels. We are kicking ass on how to monetize our
Perfect.
podcast. Yes,
So
exactly.
Paul, to go on what you were saying, on a Porsche wheel, even dating back to, if I'm not mistaken, Fuchs wheels, and I know through the 80s, if you spin the wheel around, it'll actually show you the metallurgy composition on the back of the wheel. It'll say like MG2 blah blah blah. Like it'll show
Oh,
that. So there,
okay.
that is. I'll see if I could get a picture of one for our next podcast. But I remember when I did a tremendous amount of diligence when we did the Turbo Cup restoration, and of course, Turbo 944 Turbo Cups have mag wheels. So that was something that I was considering going down that slippery slope, but they're insanely expensive. But yeah, it does have the metallurgy on the back of one of the spokes of the wheel. So check
Casey,
that out.
Casey, sorry if I'm about to embarrass myself, but didn't Porsche put magnesium roofs on some of the 911s too?
Yep.
Okay.
GT cars. I'm not sure that. I mean, a wheel is a load-bearing item that expands and contracts with heat. I don't necessarily believe that a magnesium roof on a GT car is something
You,
that, I mean, that wouldn't be a replaceable item for sure.
here, just because you mentioned that super nerdy stuff, and I probably wasted way too much time reading about this, but the heat cycles and carbon fiber wheels has like zero negative impact on the wheels, where versus in the alloys it does. It just essentially causes the wheels to eventually break down. So anyway,
The only problem with carbon though is if there's any sort of nick or something that goes into the weave, like a very like a stone strike from driving on the road, or God forbid you run it into a curb, you know, if you're into the weave and you're past the gel coat, to me that's compromised.
It is.
And one carbon fiber wheel, I know how much a carbon fiber wheel for a Ford GT costs, and it costs more than my 914 and my Land Cruiser when I first bought them added together.
so
Well,
Casey, I think how you started out by saying just buy aluminum alloys. That was
Aluminum, buy aluminum wheels
the ultimate
that you
answer.
can fix for sure.
well, I mean, and he's right because going back to my even with the steel wheels, like when I first got my green 911, I had to make custom 7 and 8 inch steel wheels. And you know how I made them is I took the centers of the space savers from like a 80s Carrera, you know, those little donut space savers. I took those, took them to a wheel place, and then they put the hoops and I gave them the back spacing. And guess what? After probably 100,000 miles, the centers of the steel wheels started to crack, the factory space savers. And one of the shot, and of course, no one's going to fix that. And by the way, trying to fix steel wheels, absolute nightmare. And ultimately, I ended up going with this aluminum wheel that's a steel look because if yes, they're a little softer, but when they don't break, they bend. And when they bend, like Casey said,
Fix
they
it.
can get fixed. But even when we sold a Mustang 350 GTR, they came with carbon fiber wheels, and everyone takes them off. Everyone. And when I went to sell it, everyone said, "Has the carbon fiber wheels ever been on the car?" And they wanted to know, going back to Tim, if I was going to have to X-ray these frickin' things. I'm like, no, the guy took delivery, already bought a new set of wheels, and before delivery switched them, and the wheels had never touched basically the ground besides the showroom
But
or
don't you
delivery.
honestly, just going back to my point, because I really am shocked that this isn't a thing. Why is it that even Haggerty and all these other people, and I know I'm setting you guys up for a nightmare because you're going to have everyone start asking this. Why isn't anyone really sensitive to the fact that these mag wheels are really only have a 10-year shelf life? Why is that not a thing? It's not like the
Well,
industry.
because we're not hearing about failures yet. We're not hearing about if it's going to come, and suddenly you start to see some stuff on the various forums and whatnot where I was making a drive and suddenly I lost a wheel or something. That's
Exactly.
when you'll start to see it.
And the
Yeah.
first mag wheel on a modern Porsche came with the 2018 GT2 RS with FISOC package. So that we're still 3 years away from that wheel being 10 years old.
I wouldn't be surprised if Porsche is proactive, like they sort of were with the Carrera GT, and sending some sort of, very owner-friendly update option for the wheels. I would be shocked if they didn't, honestly, because that just seems like it's perfect for some, plaintiff's attorney to go after him because of that. But all right, you guys ready to move on?
Sure.
All right. Okay.
or
Yep,
not.
for sure. I'm good to go.
Paul needs to take a
What do
little.
we?
Paul needs to take a little break, evidently. All right.
Yeah, I'm still disabled.
Yeah, we'll see when you get back. All right, so here's something. This is an interesting topic. At least, hopefully, it works out to be an interesting topic. And what got me on this one is looking at this 1952 Ferrari 212 that was on Bring a Trailer. And what I want to talk with you guys about is what constitutes real versus fake, and or tribute. I don't. Fake's a harsh word, but let's just use fake because it cuts to it. And I'll give you, and just to get our brains working on the same wavelength, diamonds. All right, you guys know that you can buy essentially jewelry grade man-made diamonds. And people now have really quickly not given much of a crap about whether it was a mined diamond or a man-made diamond. And inside a very short period of time, the value of mined diamonds has plummeted. And also, I was researching even more of this, and I was thinking, well, where in history has there been a one-for-one replica of something that was coveted, that when it started being mass accepted, where that did not degrade the value of the original? And I couldn't find a single example, because the pool of people that are willing to pay the extra for the real original thing gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And another example would be thinking of like well, I mean, we could talk about cars here in a second, obviously, but if you think about paintings, I mean, people originally put a lot of value on paintings, a landscape, a painting, and all of a sudden people are starting to take pictures. And then the original photographers who were taking pictures were maligned by the artists who are doing the painting, because after all, it's a landscape, sure, but you didn't actually put in the work. And then sooner or later, what happens is people that were, you have the world's full of very famous photographers now. Is a very good photographer any less than a very good painter? I don't know. So at what point does something in an automotive world, just reeling this back in, because Sora 2 is really what got me thinking about this, and I've been sharing with you guys some of the videos that are coming out. And in listeners and viewers, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google Sora 2. It's a chat GPT product that you can make videos with voice prompts, Casey Park and skydiving, jumping into a 911 cabriolet while being chased by zebras, right? And you just give it a verbal, essentially prompts, and it will create a video about a minute long. And it is just absolutely shocking. You don't have to do anything other than get so where's your mind go with this? Obviously, they're going to be longer. People are going to start doing full-length podcasts. They're going to be doing driving videos. And so at what point do people not give a crap? And I was talking to my 11-year-old about this. I said, Zoe, she was like, I can tell if it's AI or not. So if you couldn't tell if it was AI or not, and you liked the AI made video as much as you do the one that was made by somebody, at what point don't you care? And she goes, well, if I find them both entertaining, why would there's no discernible difference. So cars, at what point is something not real versus a tribute? And don't say just because it was made in period, because that Ferrari that I put up from Bring a Trailer has a lot of made in period parts on it. Dave, you go first.
Oh boy. The Ferrari that you brought up, which I wish I grabbed the picture of. So the question is, that is theoretically, as I look at the listing, that's a real car, isn't it?
There you go.
There you
Paul.
go. Mr. Kramer is not, he's doing that from the bathroom? What's
Doing
going
that
on here?
remotely. Oh my goodness.
I
Wow.
was dying because I knew Tim would need this, and I did load it because I wanted you to see it, and I have definitely thoughts. I didn't understand the topic at first, but then I definitely had thoughts about it. But go ahead,
No,
Dave.
I mean, I think it's a
Well,
great,
Dave, let me
Go
answer
ahead,
your question.
Tim.
So it was originally a coupe, okay, and it was made into a barchetta. It was completely rebodied by a company in England. So it has the coupe's chassis. It's not the original motor, not the original, nothing on it's original except either all or a portion of the chassis. I read the description twice. I couldn't discern what it was. And in the old Porsche world,
So
go ahead.
no, so if that's the case, if this car had been all original, because this car sold for like what, $200,000 or something like that.
Hasn't sold yet.
Okay,
But
so
the last time it did sell, it sold for 400 grand.
okay, so it's sitting there right now at 200 in its auction. What would this car be worth if it was quote unquote the real deal? Like, I mean,
6 to 7 million.
okay. Well, clearly then people, even if it sold for 4, people care, and I have the exact same situation as well with the idea of a car that has a different history than the car it sits and exists right now. But I think that's a great point because that's a tremendous value then for somebody who likes that car and wants that car as part of their collection. It still has a lot of that Ferrari DNA in it, even though that might have been the car or a car that was, modified at some point. So I think that's really fascinating. Yeah, clearly,
And
it's not $6 or $7 million.
it is still a Ferrari. It's got a Ferrari VIN. You can enter that into Ferrari, all kinds of different things. You can do FIA, vintage Ferrari rallies in that thing. So it is, you're saying you're hitting the nail on the head in my mind. So you can buy that thing for less than 10% of the original one. How is that not more fun than the original one, other than for bragging rights that you have an original one? Because you can drive that.
Well, I think the thing is when you get to the level where you have the money to have the seven-figure version, those people don't want to have a story. And I don't and to give you an example, this weekend on a Cars and Coffee Sunday, I don't have the picture. It was a little video I posted of what looked like a Lusso TDF driving through our Cars and Coffee. And I didn't say anything. It was sounded cool for our motor. And basically, my friend Kip, posted, did the whole Mercedes thing. He said that's a fake. And I go, what do you mean it's a fake? And he knows the car. He says basically it is a 330 turned into a short Lusso, which it's all Ferrari parts done. It was expensive build, probably $250,000, 20 years ago. And people did that. I knew people who took 330s and turned them into short wheelbases all the time. And he was like, the work was done well, and I was okay with it. He goes, his problem is the owner was trying to play it off like it was the real deal. And I have seen this with replica. When I had my replica Spider, and I'd go to these shows and there'd be a guy with a replica speedster trying to explain how it was real. And that was the frustrating part to me was some of the owners and just trying to build this fake provenance. But when you get
Well,
to this level, yeah, go
you got
ahead.
you guys are stuck in a rut about this one particular thing, and I'm going to make it real palatable. So women with diamonds, right? They don't care if it's lab grown or if it's mined. They don't care. It's a 2 or 3 carat diamond, and that happened in an unbelievably short period of time, less than a year. That all of a sudden, jewelry grade lab grown diamonds eviscerated more or less the mined
I have
diamond market.
personal experience with this, Tim. So both of my adult male children are getting engaged. Both are out shopping for diamonds. Both of their soon to be spouses wanted natural diamonds, not lab grown. Because I'm with you. I'm looking at this going, Jesus. I mean, it's one's $10,000, one's $40,000 or whatever for basically the same. I don't see the difference as it relates to
There is no,
diamonds.
but there, okay, but
You're
you
correct. I mean, it's
it's
literally the
literally
same exact thing. I totally
right.
get it. This is slightly different, and I still think it's moving. What you're saying is absolutely where the future is going to be in that whole diamond thing for sure. And it's happened really quickly, as you've said, for sure. I think the thing with cars is there's always going to be this giant disparity between, the real, because you can track all that provenance in these cars. I mean, it's whether or not, now, does that make it really worth more?
Let me
I
make
would
it more,
much rather have
let me
the
make it more
550
complicated.
than, yeah, go ahead.
All right, let me make it more complicated just for fun. And Casey's going to basically hit it out of the park. You can always tell he's thinking.
You're losing me. I mean, you started
That's
with me getting chased by zebras and skydiving. So if you ever see a video that looks like that, it's fake. I promise.
Comic relief, perfect timing. All right, so if somebody all of a sudden starts making a one-for-one copy of a 911 with a brand new body, it's not a 911 then, and it's better in every discernible way, quality-wise, stem to stern, same exact driving experience. It's called a 1973 911S because this is happening. There are two companies I know about, one in Europe and one in Asia, that are making literal reproduction shells that are discernible, right? And I'm in communication with both of them because I'm just sort of curious. They haven't told said what the pricing is going to be yet. Are you telling me that in Luft 2021, 10 Lufts from now, if someone shows up in that yellow car that's behind Paul right now, and it's a brand new version of that old car, do you think anybody will care? I do not think anybody will care. That's not a special car. That's not an RS. That's not a, some crazy old Porsche race car. That's just a normal run of the mill. They made millions of them 911.
No,
Continue.
no special DNA to it. No, no. I mean,
Nothing.
no Porsche anything. No motor.
No, no, you can look.
I would care.
Well, Julie and I are building a 550, and our motor in our 550 is 100% not original Porsche. Every single part of it has been recreated by, Germans. And so you can buy a four cam 547-1 four cam motor and have it be exactly the same. The metallurgy is the same. Everything's the same. Porsche's family used the same guy that Julie and I hired over in Denmark to put replacement motors in their four cams. Okay. So nobody cares. And this is where I'm saying, I suspect this is where, like, you guys don't have to agree. I'm not trying to sell you on something. I'm just sort of curious about this.
Like,
Casey, what
so,
do you think?
well, golly, this is a lot to absorb. I read the question on our shared doc and I took it a little differently. Like, let's say you have a race car. Let's say you have a 2004 GT3 996 GT3 RSR. Okay. Let's say that car wins Daytona. I have no idea if one did in 2004 or not, but let's say the race after Daytona, you Sebring that year, that car goes into a wall, it gets retubbed. Okay. If you don't know what retubbing means, basically, if you write a race car off enough, you buy a tub from Porsche, you move all the parts that aren't broken into that car. At what point is this ship of Theseus not the car that won Daytona in 2004?
That was the essence of my question, Casey. So
Okay,
like I
good. Well,
said,
then I think I got it. So,
okay.
so the only people that this matters to is the rich guy that owns the car and the next rich guy that's going to buy the car. I mean, that's really all it matters to, but it's a great question. I mean, if you have a Carrera RS, right? And let's say it's a lightweight and a corner gets stuffed and you need to replace a fender, but the fender that you replace isn't lightweight thickness, it's traditional touring thickness. Let's say it cracks the glass on the passenger side of the car and the windshield, and you have to replace the Glaceric glass that's in the car that's particular to a lightweight with Sacred glass that's particular to a touring. At what point is that not the car?
Well,
If I
I
knew the
mean,
answer to that, I would probably be able to write a book. I don't.
well,
Um,
here's the thing. When you're talking about the RS, is there's enough of them built that the car that has had parts replaced will have a lesser value than the car without. And actually, I think I wrote a note about that. I think when it comes to race cars, they're in this unique world, which I've told people when they're like, "Hey, what should I collect?" I always find that late model race cars that are too new to be vintage and too old to be competitive are what to collect because no one cares about them. And the thing about those cars are they're kind of immortal. They're basically their value is tied into the VIN and the logbook. And for whatever reason, race cars get a pass. And this has happened with all manufacturers, Ferrari, Corvette, whatever. If it did something great, won the championship, won a very big race, and it had to get retubbed, no one cares about. When was the last time you saw on a famous race car someone wondered if the engine was numbers matching? They go through engines like they're potato chips.
and
So the
I'll I'll
reality is,
I'll tag on that in a minute, Paul, with the car that I encountered recently. But keep going.
yeah, so I just feel like when people ask me, hey, I want to build a collection, in my opinion, is first of all, you're going to be spending seven figures. You're not building a collection with $50,000, $100,000 cars. You're going to be buying a collection that starts at 500,000 each, and you buy vintage race cars because in the end, original paint, numbers matching, panels, bodies, all of that is irrelevant. All that matters is what DNA sat in that seat and what trophy did they get. And that to me, and the fact that so long as it's factory parts, the motorsport division replaced them, it literally doesn't matter because you don't have any competition. If you have the RSR that won Daytona and won Sebring, and it's been rebodied, different engine, different body panels, all it is a VIN number and a logbook. It's not like go buy another one. Like go find the other one that won Sebring. Like you can't, and that's what makes those cars kind of immortal. And in my opinion, if I was building a collection, that's what I would build it with.
Casey?
So I was reviewing with a client the other day who owns significant race cars, and he has a car that he's considering selling, which won a it's a very old 911 that won Daytona. Its class of Daytona, and that car then the next year plays very well at Daytona and very well at Sebring. Got all the trophies. Car has the original transmission. Paul, it has the original engine, and the
Wow.
majority of the body work is original. So to me, if you were to line up that car with the car the following year that didn't have that stuff, the car that I'm talking about is significantly more valuable because it still has that DNA in it that took it. And that to me is, and when you see race cars that have original engines, like it's insane. I mean, to me, it's mind blowing, especially from that era, as Tim, you mentioned that, and Paul, that you mentioned that they get removed. They have three engines. They rebuild another engine, throw it in the car for the second half of the season. But it's pretty amazing when you do see those survivor cars come through. And that to me is mind blowing.
But you guys are focusing in on this little tiny niche because that's ground that's easy to protect because you're talking about historically significant cars. What my premise is that the vast majority of cars that the listeners and viewers are buying themselves are not ever going to be historically significant. The cars we saw at Luft, 10% were historically significant. And my premise is that the future is not going to care. They're going to buy something for the experience. And I'm going to say this too, because I love your opinions on this. So Gooding Auction a few years ago, a gorgeous 550 was there. Looking at it, loved it, inspired me in a lot of different ways with our project. And I started talking with somebody, and it happened to belong to a very famous car collector out of New York who maybe had his own TV show in the 80s. And the guy went on to tell me that the car was built around essentially a piece of chassis the size of a shoebox. That was all there was original on the car. The guy may have been telling a story. That happens a lot, but that was the essence of it. And so this tiny little car piece of 550, whatever chassis number it was, and then the frame was new, the body was new, engine was new, transmission was new. Because you can get all that stuff because Germans are amazing, reproducing all that stuff. And there it was being marketed as the original car based on this tiny little, amount of original chassis. Real or fake?
Is there three other ones where they used other parts of the car out there?
No.
I mean, but cars get created out of VIN plates. I
That's
mean,
what
a
I'm
VIN
saying.
plate could
Yeah.
exist.
But that's
I
what I'm
mean,
saying, Casey. So does that make it real or fake if it all it is just a VIN plate?
Well, it goes back to Theseus's ship. How
yeah.
much of that ship's real if you replace every single piece of wood?
And do people care? And I guess you're saying on the extremes, and I totally believe you guys.
For the people
do.
that I deal with that trade in insanely rare special cars, it matters. I
Yeah.
believe
agree.
really people that are going to spend millions of dollars on a 550 would look at that and they would hire somebody to come look at the car and they'd say, "Look at this thing, tell me what you think about it." And they would tear it apart. But
Yep.
I don't know. I didn't see the car because I believe that in the top echelon of vehicle collectors, like some of the people that I represent, they pay people that are a lot smarter than me to go do these inspections to make sure that it's the real deal. I mean, there was that famous case a while ago about that same comedian bought a car that was misrepresented and it resulted in huge lawsuits. That's
Yeah.
something I never want to partake in. So if I come
talking about
across something like that,
we're talking about Rosie O'Donnell too, the famous.
100%.
We're not talking
Yeah.
about Jerry. No.
I
No,
thought it
no,
was I thought it was Fran Drescher, but that's where we are. So, but so I'm glad Dave got a kick out of that. But anyway,
Well, that's an obscure poll, Casey, which is what I like. I mean, it was an
there we
obscure
go.
poll. That was good.
And we're no old fashions into this morning. But
Oh,
it's an
yeah.
it's an interesting position, and like I said, I believe it only matters to the person buying the car and the person that's willing to pay all the money for the car.
Yep, I agree. Well, okay, I think we've beaten this one into the ground. Listeners, viewers, let us know what you think, because frankly, I think this is going to be yet unresolved. So we've talked about two potentially controversial things: shelf life of magnesium Porsche wheels, and also is it real or is it fake? Do you guys want to keep going? It's up to you.
I think
I
we should
think we should do this
that.
or that.
I agree
Yeah,
with
I knew.
Casey.
I knew you guys weren't going to want to do the EV thing. I knew it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. I don't blame you. I had electric cars, yawner.
Dave does. We already
Yeah,
talked about
exactly.
electric cars today.
Hey, Case. Hey, Dave. Ask Casey
I'm
about
going to
his
stay current, man.
Ask Casey about his 964 and what happened because he threw a barb at you.
I got the
I,
world's nicest cigarette lighter USB adapter.
Well,
Does
I
work
just tell you
really
that I
good.
can 3D print a insert you can stick on that USB, the one that doesn't fit in the stupid ashtray, or excuse me, the lighter, and it'll be just as good. We'll sell those too. That'll be part of the Full Throttle Talk collection.
Yeah,
So
that
Yes.
and dog bandanas.
Hey, you know
we
what?
got it. We got
That's
all the
great.
bases covered.
Casey, why don't you go first? This or that?
Okay, cool. So one of my clients sent me this car, and I think it looks like a terrible idea. Um, this is a 2001
Oh,
S62 powered, which correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the engine from a comparable M5 of the era, coupled with a six-speed manual transmission. It's finished. It's a short wheelbase, originally a short wheelbase 740 finished in Estoril blue, which is probably the best BMW color of all time.
And one of the best BMWs of all time. If you guys have
Yeah.
never driven a short wheelbase ones of those,
Yeah.
they're freaking awesome.
So
We
this
used to
is
call them
love it.
sporty shorties. Sporty
yes,
shorties.
and the only thing to me that would have made it better would be those split dished five spoke wheels or split ten. You know the ones I'm talking about that I think
And
came on the
parallels.
540 M parallels of that era.
Mhm.
So this car has who knows how many miles on it because you can't even tell if it's real because there's so many different parts in this thing. But it's got it's got a ZHP shift knob, so the driving while awesome people will certainly love it. And it's just all over the place, but it is a really interesting car. This car, like I said, who knows how many miles because it's got all kinds of stuff swapped, but hammered for 54 grand. And the other car, so I was thinking Q ships, right? I was thinking things that you could drive for long distances. And the other car that I had interest in was this car. This is a 2005 E55 wagon in silver. There you go, Tim. That one's for you. The other Tim, the other silver Porsches, Tim. So silver Mercedes E55 wagon. This one had a bunch of miles on it too, but it showed really well and it looked like it had a bunch of history with it. This one sold for a similar price, 48 grand plus fees back in June of this year. I had a special part in my heart for those E55s. I actually have a wheel of one of them still because when I worked at the dealership in college, I used to drive around E55s all the time and I thought they were cool. They made great supercharger noises. So those are the options. We have a Frankenstein manual transmission 740i with an M5 power plant in it, or we have a pretty original 2005 E55 wagon.
Those are awesome choices. Paul, you go first. Good job, Casey.
Ooh, yeah, I'll take. I love a sporty shorty, and the E38 body is one of the coolest. A manual that I actually wish they would have put the V10 from the E60 because that would have
Ooh.
been badass. Because that I think is one of the best motors that BMW made that no one cares about. I got to take the Estral Blue. It just tugs at my heartstrings. It's just unique. You'll be the only one with that thing, and get rid of those AC Schnitzer wheels and put on some M parallels.
How about you, Dave? Which would you choose?
Oh,
Benz or
not
Bemmer?
the minute you had me at hello with the blue car for sure. The BMW, the E38. I've owned two, both sporty shorties. I just think that was BMW's pinnacle for a big
100%.
sedan. It's just a gorgeous car. I still love the proportions of it. When you roll up on one from behind, I think it's just a gorgeous look. The balance of that car is fantastic. And that particular color is absolutely stunning. So I would absolutely take that one.
Have you guys ever driven one of those long wheelbase with the V12s?
I've driven all the variants. The V12 is a sporty shorty, just a regular 740 IL. My favorite thing in those cars, if you remember, and I don't know why more did it, but the seat, the back of the seat, you have normal tilt on the back, it clamshells, it curls. So if you take the back of a seat, you split it in half. If you think about the human body, the we kind of lean forward, and this thing would just, it was like leather spooning you while you drive. It was so good. I love those seats. Sorry.
I
Me
agree.
too.
No,
Tim threw up in his mouth.
I just, yeah, I was wondering where you're going to go with that. I was just going to let you run yourself off the cliff. I would 100% choose that one as well. Dave, do you have two choices? I don't see anything in the sheet.
No, I do, but I do. These were almost tied back to the last conversation as well, because the two choices that I'm presenting today are both in the $200,000 range. The car behind me is an 88, one of 31 slant nose Targa turbos, made at Porsche. This car I've talked about on the show before. This is a car that got damaged early in its life. We brought this car back to being the Targa that it was born on, right? So if this car had been unmodified and had not any kind of previous bad history, this would be a $400,000 or $500,000 car. This car is probably more in the $200,000 range right now because of its history, but we've put the car back together beautifully. It's fantastic. It looks great. It's on display right now at the Porsche dealer here in town. And this car is probably a car that's worth a couple $100,000 versus our star from the Luftgekühlt show here.
And just for the record, that red car originally was born as a slant nose. It originally was, the whole thing. And just that's important to mention that because that is a
Correct.
really rare car.
And it's real. It's a real car, real serial number, real Porsche certificate. There's nothing about that car that is not 100% what it was, other than it now doesn't have the original Targa bar welded to the car, and it doesn't have the original glass. Everything else on the car is as it was in 1988. The car's only got 17,000 miles on it. Okay, a similar car, roughly 200 grand. This was a build we did for this client. This car, he's told me this car is available. This is the copper brown metallic car that we just displayed. It is a 78 SC, but we stripped this car to the tub, bare metal, full restoration. Every bit of the car is new. It's still got kind of its stock motor, but all refreshed. Transmission, interior's custom. It's got kind of a roof front bumper setup and a custom rear bumper setup. Um, it's a great car. It's fantastic. And, if you want to make this into a cool hot rod, you add a little horsepower to it and boom, it's a freaking phenomenal looking car with the nickel plated trim and everything, around this car. It's just fantastic car. Both cars, think of both as being roughly $200,000. Which one do you pick?
Casey, you go first.
I drooled over that brown car a lot on Saturday when we were hanging out in your booth and Saturday night. The details on it are crazy. The thing you didn't point out is it's got 964 shark fins on the side of it and rocker covers, which I'd never seen somebody apply to an earlier car. It's super rad. All the trim on the car, as Dave said, he went through the process with me with they did Cerakoting, and then they tried different, I guess they used a matte or a satin clear over top of it. That car to me was insane. But between those two cars, I'm not a big slant nose guy, so the decision for me is easy. But even if it was a normal 930 turbo, I'd still pick the car behind Dave because the build quality on that thing was so right.
So you would choose a normal 930 turbo over that car. I mean, not a slant nose, not all the 1980s Blitz. You would still choose that over that.
I'm not a huge 930 guy, to be honest, especially 930 slant noses. I look after two slant noses and a 89 Targa with a 5-speed, and I'd still pick that car. I think they're better driving cars. SCs still have great steering feel. All that stuff goes away.
Awesome. How about you, Paul? Which would you choose?
I'm a 930 fan, but between slant nose and Targa, it kills the 930 part to me. And then you add the fact that just the value of it's always going to be, that's going to be the sales guy in me goes, oh, that car will always be hard to sell because the guy who's got 200 grand will spend 300 or 400 grand. So he doesn't have to have a story. That being said, the copper car looks beautiful. I would say that if it were mine and I had empty checkbook, I go, hey, Dave, I'll take the copper car, take that 3-liter out, go put a 2.7 MFI RS spec motor, 91183 as close as you can. Because I think, imagine that car kind of built as a like a Euro Carrera tribute thing. And I always tell people, if you drive a really proper 2.7 MFI car in that kind of body, you'll stop shoving weird motors in these old cars.
I like the brown car better too. And all the reasons you guys stated, and he didn't mention it's got kick-ass air conditioning that he put in.
Oh,
Uh,
it's done.
yeah,
Check.
exactly. But I'll say the reason I like it better, and I think you guys are kind of hinting at this too, is it's less flashy. You can have more fun in that brown car. No one's going to look copper car, sorry. No one's going to look twice at it. You know, I'm at a point in my life where I'm not trying to draw more attention to myself. That's for damn sure. Can one of you guys help me out with my two choices? And I know I put four options up. Can you guys this 96? So here's my this or that. A 2016 Porsche. I'm actually especially interested in Casey's opinion on
Oh,
this.
I loaded these pictures because I wasn't sure if you were
Can you
gonna
load the
do.
other ones? Can you do the other
Okay,
ones?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Paul. I really appreciate it. So it's a 2016, and these are both sold, so we know what they sold for. And 911R versus a 2019 Porsche 911 Speedster. I think we could argue that they're the best of that particular 991.1 was arguably the best was the R, and the 991.2 arguably the best was the Speedster. If you guys want to debate that, we can. I'm open to different interpretations of what the best means, but yes. So, and he'll put up the pictures here in a second for those of you who are playing at home, hopefully soon.
Here they come. Sorry. It's funny.
A hell of a job,
I
Paul.
predicted that you would do the other two. So, um,
What
but
happens when Tim gives us, two choices and he takes four, right? He,
I
you know,
did
he
I not
he doesn't
say
follow
feel
his own
free?
damn rules.
Did
Yeah, I
I?
all
did.
right.
I did three
So
last week, and I got chastised.
all right. So there's the 911R
All right. So
and
would you
there's
go?
the Speedster.
Thank you, Paul. And by the way, if you guys read my notes, I did say that one of you guys could steal my two choices, right? If you wanted to. All right. So uh, I have the Speedster. I love the car. Brilliant car. I don't know how to say other than that. I mean, just looking at that picture right there makes me want to wish I was there driving it right now. Some of the best driving experience I've ever had a car are in the Speedster. I had a touring. I've had two tourings, and between the touring experience and that's essentially what a 911R is, and the Speedster experience, to me, the Speedster experience is easily 10 times better because you can hear the engine, you can hear that, have all the experiences of, driving in my particular example in Appalachia and having more of a visceral experience than the constant tire noise of the tires making all the ruckus in the back of the car. Paul, you're going to go last since you're already snickering at me. Casey, they both sold for 450. So Casey, what would you choose and why?
Um, I wish I don't mind the heritage package on the Speedster, but I prefer it to be a solid color, honestly. We have a listener that I engage with from time to time who's got a Brewster green or Irish green one, but that would be perfect in that car. But I've a considerable amount of seat time in both of those, and I would pick the Speedster every single day of the week.
For what?
I think the engine's a little bit more interesting,
Yep.
but they drive very similarly, in my opinion. But being that the top comes off in the Speedster, it gives it more of a sense of occasion. And I think it's a more interesting car.
I'm going to say this. You guys might find this interesting. So we have that car and we have a 718 Spider RS. Again, I always think whether I should say these things because I know I'm going to get crap for it. But
I'll give it to you. Just say it. Just say it. I'll give it to you.
the Speedster is honestly made better than the Spider, but better
Okay.
than the 718.
Right.
When like I was putting a lightweight battery in the 718, and I took apart all those bits and bobs. It's not painted, and there's other little you can see there's the Speedster is absolutely put together in all the places that you would never look, and I do look better. And just it's fascinating because those special cars really are made at a higher level, at least in that particular example. So, Dave, what would you choose and why?
I would take the Speedster as well. I've always found those to be extremely attractive cars. Now, normally I would be very concerned about what it might do to my hair to run with the top down. But however, with that not a factor any longer, I think the Speedster is just a extremely attractive car. I don't even mind that one, although I'm not quite sure what's going on with those front fenders, if that's a just an image issue, a photo issue, or if that's really some kind of two-tone thing on the front.
No, it
I
is.
don't
That's
care
the
for
heritage.
that.
That's the heritage pack.
To
On
me,
the,
it
on
looks
the,
like someone who taped off their car for a track day.
and that's a
Yeah,
bad
well,
thing.
okay. If that's the heritage pack, I didn't realize that on that car. I mean, I got
Yeah.
it with the understood the okay. It's really just the front bumper
It's a front
that's
bumper
that
and then
color.
there's
Got it.
darts, but that's basically what
Yep,
they did to race cars in the 50s and
yep.
60s, 356
Sure.
in particular.
Those interiors, which I'm always obviously drawn to as well. I just think the interiors in those heritage package cars are fantastic. You spend a lot of time in the car. I like to look around in the car and see interesting fabrics and things like that in the car. So that's my choice for sure.
Kramer, what about you? What would you choose and why?
Man, you guys all have good points. And my two issues with the Speedster is I just don't like convertibles. And I know you can put in Speedsters is more of a convertible, and I hate the rear ends. I hate the way the rear ends look. And what's worse than that is when you're behind one of these and their rear end and that stupid wing, the thing that comes up. I Now granted you're driving the car, you don't see it. I just don't like that. And honestly, I think if it wasn't before we just saw that it was the intercooler episode where they compared the we talked about last episode, the RS 4.0, the 911R and the
Yep.
new ST. I think if it wasn't for me watching that and re-falling in love with the 911R, I would choose the Speedster, but there's something about the 911R. And here's the thing: is Tim, you brazed over it. You're like, "Hey, I had a touring, so it's the same as the 911R," which is like fighting words to the 911R.
I mean,
And
experience as far as the noise about
I
the,
know, but no, but you said, "Oh, I had a touring, and so I got the 911R experience." So we both know Dirk Layer, and he's sort of a no bullshit guy, and
Bleep
he
that
has
out, Ann. Bleep that out.
yeah, and he has
exactly.
a sorry.
I
He has
did
a
one
nine.
earlier. It's
It's
okay.
really hard for me not to to curse. But anyway, he has a 911R and he's had a touring, and he's not doing it to boost the value. But he said is it worth the hundred? Now it's about 200,000, double the value for the 911R. With that in terms of different, maybe not. But he said that there was this specialness that you kind of lost on future cars, sort of the last of this raw analog, whatever you want to say. So me personally, I would take it almost in this spec that we see, except for I would put green stripes on it. Even though this was the BP Heritage, it was technically red, but everyone thought it was green. But I like the green. But it's got ceramics. I think it's the single mass flywheel,
Need that.
which by the way cracks me up. Everyone's like, "Is this single mass flywheel?" Like I was asking a collector, well, if you got the dual mass and they wear out eventually, can't you just put the single mass on, right? And you're
Yes.
there. So like I don't understand. That's a whole weird conversation with collectors. Like, oh, because
But
it
if you
didn't come on the
change
window
the
sticker.
flywheel, is it
Is it
fake?
original?
Is it not? Is it fake?
But my answer is 911R.
Yeah.
911R. But
Okay.
you guys made it a compelling argument. I almost changed my answer.
Well,
So
you
there you
know
go.
those cars. You remember what those things were selling for when they came out in the day? Like over $1 million. Isn't that incredible? I mean,
Yeah.
that just astonishing to me. And we're not going to talk about it this week, but I've been kind of tracking the ST market because I think it's giving us an indication what the other special edition cars are going to do, peak and then kind of come down really fast. But we'll talk about that on the next show. All right. So clearly, Paul is wrong, and the Speedster wins. All right, Paul, you're up next.
And going a different direction, this is sort of going on to last week, old timer versus young timer. And these two cars ended auction at the same time, and it was kind of interesting and a little disheartening. There was this 1972 desirable side oil door, 1 year only, 911 T Coupe, 5-speed manual, factory sport seats that were pretty decent. Um, he, I would say the downside is it would have been an MFI motor because it was a US car. They put carbs on it. It happens all the time. The seller took great photos. He didn't do a very good job of like this is a car where you find out if its numbers matching, and it's not easy these days because they make you go to Porsche Classic, but there's some ways around it. But he had good photography. His engagement was a little vague. He put compression numbers up. But when I looked at this car, it sold a week ago for 69,500, hammered for 69,500. A dry,
Jesus.
straight compression numbers pretty decent. I think it was everyone said at the end after people like bullied it, It was a good deal. And then the same day, this bad boy closed. So
Ah,
this
it's
is
at
a
my shop right now.
is it really?
It
Oh,
is. It just rolled in 2 days ago.
I can't wait to hear more about it. So this car to me screamed, sorry, Dave, it screamed Frankenstein. Um, this was what you built in 2014 because the market was going up and you thought you could cash in. They took a 74 911 and they painted it linen gray. They put turbo flares on, which I'm pretty sure the turbo flares might have been hung on wrong. They might seem too low. There's something awkward about the stance. Then they threw in these weird seats with like GTI interior, everything about, and then the killer is they just got the stock 2.7 CIS motor. They slap carbs on with, I mean, it looks like the Firewall's Jiffy Pop if you know what that is from the
Did you not
70s.
hear the bit where he said that's one of his customers' cars, dude? Are you just totally being an
That's
insensitive
perfectly
bastard
fine.
right now?
No,
I mean,
because here's the thing is I'm setting him up because what's going to happen is Dave's going to make this car right. This car to me, what it screams as a used car salesman who sees people sending the cars going, "What do you think?" This car to me screams shortcut, shortcut, shortcut. How do I make it look cool? And here's the part that just made me throw up in my mouth. It hammered for 92,500. It hammered for $23,000 more than this very pretty 72 911 that looked like no one messed with. And it goes back to our conversation. Someone will go pay 25 grand more for something that I swear to God, I think needs a lot more work. I think that I'm afraid to even see what the electricals look like in that car. And Dave, I'm glad it's in Dave's hand because I think Dave will make it what it should be. I think it's fundamentally a good car.
so
I just
Dave,
think
what would you choose between the yellow one and the linen one?
Wow, wow. So, I mean, the yellow one is a bargain. It was a bargain. Now, obviously, I have not seriously looked at the gray one. I was out of town. It rolled in. It was in my shop when I got back from out of town. So I haven't even really given it a serious look. As I look at that three-quarter shot, Paul, that you just had up a second ago, something does seem a little off with the stance. I'm not sure if the tires aren't far enough out on those
It's the
fenders because they do
perspective.
look.
Do those
no.
Yeah,
not? It's the perspective, but do those not look like European bumper things? Look at Paul. Look at the
yeah,
butt
those are
again.
for sure.
Yeah,
Okay,
Those
they're
are Euro. Those
so
are Euro bumperettes.
that's a gray market car then.
no,
No,
it's
no.
not a gray
Whoever did
market
this
car.
mod, because I had the same issue when I first saw it, right? Because the front valance on the car is off a 3.2. So this car is kind of set up to look like even the dash, the inside, it's got the 86 plus dash in it with the wide vents. So somebody took great pains on this car to make this car almost, forward dated to a late 80s kind of car
Wow.
with the wide fenders. And that's
Yeah.
my sense is that wide fenders on a Porsche for a lot of guys, they just get lusty over those. I think the car sits a little high right now. That's one of my other
Here,
things. I haven't measured it, Paul, but
Here's the
it
problem with this
feels
car.
like
And
it sits a little high.
we had this with a couple other cars that came to us that had turbo flares added on. Putting turbo flares is so hard on these cars. It is incredibly hard. And what you look at is look at the front fender. And basically, when you come off the top of the fender, it should go right into the flare. But if you look at this car, it kind of goes down just about an inch and then goes into the flare. I think what happened is someone hung
Happens a
these
lot.
flares a little too low. So then what they had to do is raise the ride height. So you got this car where it looks like the tires are fit the wheel well right, but then it looks like it's standing on its tiptoes. Also, I think they put 17s on, which I freaking hate. There's but my point is, like, you have this beautiful, no one has touched car for $23,000 left, or you go buy the Tammy Faye Baker, facelift. which I think is got problems.
I mean, what are the sports seats in that yellow car worth alone, right? I mean,
Oh,
that's 8 to
those
10
are those
grand.
are 12 those are
15 to 20
12 to
grand. Yeah.
$15,000 sports seats.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hilarious if they're original, right? Which they
No,
probably
they are. I looked
Yeah.
at them.
Which they appear to be real. Yeah.
They're the correct double lockers. Those are original. That car I think is more original than most people think. He finally threw a picture up of the floors with all the carpet out and the floor, and then people are like, "Oh, look at all that rust. It's the freaking glue from the
Yep.
carpet that never had been removed." Someone got a really good car because sadly, this hurts my heart. Unless it's a really cool early long hood, I think the people who want driver long hoods is kind of fading away because they'd rather go buy that crap. Sorry.
evidently.
Mm.
So, what would you choose, Dave? You have to choose one. And
I know, and I'll say this: we will obviously do a little work. I think most of what we're going to do on that is interior work on the gray car. Having said that, the value on the yellow car is what would draw me to the yellow car. That's a hell of a buy on that yellow car for the money. And I mean, I like interesting colors. Like, is that light yellow, Paul? Was
It's
that?
light yellow, and I think
Yeah,
great photography, but they washed it. I think they washed it out a little bit, but people don't realize if you really polish light yellow, it should look like a tennis ball, like that almost
yeah. It's.
greenish.
really,
I just
wow.
think that's an interesting, neat color. I would take that car. I would buy that car based on the value.
Casey, what do you think? Both these cars are older than you.
So, the where was the yellow car listed, Paul?
It was both bring a trailer, both closed
No,
the
sorry,
exact
I
same
meant
date.
location.
Location was, hold on a second, 72, Washington. So one car was in Washington, the yellow car was in Washington, and the Tammy Faye Baker special was in Florida. Oh, big surprise. Sorry, Florida.
So my 2 cents, I mean, being that they weren't able to prove the heritage of the yellow car, you can easily put that car on a flatbed and take it to a Porsche Classic dealer and they can get a CTC for it, which is the move. And that probably would have been worth $10,000 on that car.
Yep.
Um, everybody's going to know my pick. I mean, I don't even need to say it, but that yellow car, especially being that it's a 72, I don't fit super well in the early Recaros, but I would probably maybe get a set of, I'd throw those in a box and get a set of like some sort of special seats that Dave could make me just to fit a little bit more comfortably in the car. But and look, I mean, pop out windows. Come on. I mean, how rad is that?
I
So, I
mean,
mean,
get the Dave seats, like Casey just said.
yep.
Sell those seats, put the money in the S&P 500, okay? And then whatever goes wrong in the car, the appreciation on the stock in the S&P 500 from the
Nope.
sell of the original sports seats will more than cover the repairs.
I'll turn the original sports seats into working MFI back on the car. That's
Oh,
what I would
There,
do.
that's a good point
that's
too.
that's probably the move. But no, I'd pick that yellow car in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think we all would. There you go. But still, there it is. There's, four nerds here. They're all choosing the car that supposedly isn't, holding value. So maybe we're completely wrong. Maybe these cars are going to just, find their own following of folks that are Casey's age and younger, which would be kind of cool. So, guys,
Really.
I have great news for you. We've broken our record for the longest podcast we've ever done.
Oh,
Right?
sorry.
No, it's fine. I think hopefully everyone enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing it. At least I did. Do you guys want to go to listener questions for the next show, or do you want to do them today? It's up to you.
Next show.
Next show. Yep.
All right, next show. I agree. All right, so listen, on behalf of all of us here at Full Throttle Talk, we want to thank you for helping keep this podcast, much to our absolute bemusement and almost dismay, so popular amongst all the primarily Porsche nerds out there. For those of you who met with Dave and Casey and I at Luft, it was real honor and pleasure to meet with all of you. Please help us get the word out. Like and subscribe. If you're on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, as a lot of you already are, and leave a pithy comment. And we really sincerely do appreciate, even though we didn't get to them today, questions and comments. You can leave them on YouTube. You can direct message us over on Instagram at Full Throttle Talk. Communicate with us. Help us to make this show so that you enjoy it as much as we enjoy doing it. So, guys, thank you for this week. And everyone else, we'll talk with you next week on Full Throttle Talk. See you guys.
See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.